DC Multiverse! How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. Today we are reviewing the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Batman Noel action figure. This would be the second time that this action figure has been released, and we'll get into that in just a moment. But first here we can see that this says Batman Noel, and that the back has a fantastic piece of Lee Bermejo's artwork from Batman Noel. But having yoinked him out of his package, we can see that he comes with a trading card, a great big batarang, and two more interchangeable hands. One of them being an extra fisticuffs hand, but the other one is a trigger finger hand. And I have to ask myself, why does he come with a trigger finger hand if, as you can see, he doesn't come with a back grapple? Wouldn't it have just made more sense to give him two fists? Just to take a second to have a close-up look at the trading card. We can see it has the same artwork as the back of the package, as is expected. And there is a data file on the back, as always, which, as always, feel free to pause and read. Oh yeah, and obviously, Batman comes with an action figure stand. Now, as mentioned before, this Batman figure is a reuse of the pre-existing Lee Bermejo Batman figure. Not entirely, but mostly. First I'll highlight where the figures are different, and then I'll talk about where they're exactly the same. So for starters, you can see that they have different head sculpts, and I actually prefer this second take on Lee Bermejo's artwork in a Batman head sculpt more than I appreciate the original one. The former had an open mouth with gritty teeth, and the bat ear horns weren't quite as sharp and pointy, while the new one boasts a closed mouth and just, I feel, a better head sculpt in general. I will say though, comparing this to Batman Noel, even though I prefer my Batman to have white lenses, if they wanted to be accurate, they would have actually made it so that you could see Batman's eyes rather than just have them whited out with lenses. Another place that these figures are different is with the bat emblems on the chest. The torso of the new Batman has actually been retooled and has a much more jagged looking bat, while the previous one actually had some battle damage and a bat shape that resembles more of the current contemporary Batman's insignia. Now, the only other ways that this Batman figure differs from the original is the fact that this one has a set of bat binoculars molded into his hand. And there they are from the other side. Let's just turn his hand so you can have a bit more of a look-see-do at them. And the fact that the previous one had a molded rubber cape made to emulate the look of Lee Bermejo's artwork, where the current one has just gone all in on a shiny wired cloth goods cape. And this cloth goods cape actually starts nice and far down, you can see here, rather than starting, say, up here, like other Batman figures that McFarlane's added a cloth goods cape to, like how he attached the cape to his Dick Grayson Batman. I have to apologize, he has a different head and trunks and belt and forearms, but this originally was the Dick Grayson Batman figure. And as you can see, the cape starts pretty far back, where when we compare the two, we can see that this one is much better. It starts so much farther forward. And I think that is a way better look, having the cape so far forward, because it's conducive to having the cape draped over his shoulder like this. And I just think that that looks way better, more Batman-like. And as you can see, there is a pretty sufficient amount of cape there to go around. It would have been kind of nice if this cape had have gone perhaps down a bit further, you know, like further down his legs in comparison to how far down it goes. Maybe just another inch perhaps would have been really awesome. But that's just a nitpick because I think overall it looks great. Another pretty major difference between these two Batman figures, and it's something that I'm really happy with, is that they changed the color palette of this Batman. Where the original release of this Batman actually had kind of a green tone to the gray, and I know that's showing up on camera because I can see it through my monitor here. Just, you can see the green there, right? Well, this new one actually doesn't have any of that problem with having green mixed in with the gray. It's just a nice gray color. Although something I'm not super keen about, a little nitpick, is that I'm not really digging this whole dry brush of an orangish brown they put all up his legs, his abs, his arms, that's likely supposed to simulate Batman being dirty. not really my cup of tea. I'll probably end up removing all that. But hey, if you're into that, it's great. I also am digging the fact that in comparison to the previous Batman figure, which you can see here, the belt area on this one is almost like just a gray color. They painted the new one more of a classic-ish, yellowish brown color, and the bat stands out a lot more for the buckle. I just think it looks great. And just here's a quick view of the back of the figure and the back of the belt. You will notice, as usual with McFarlane toys, there is no dry brushing or extra paint deco on the back of the figure. That is something that McFarlane has a habit of doing, or really not doing, is decoing the back of his figures with the same extra dirt or shadowing or shading or brighter colors that he does with the front. And now on to my final nitpick about this figure that I do like, but it is a nitpick, and that's that this has been labeled the Batman Noel figure. And one of the most glaring differences between this and Batman Noel is that the cape is completely wrong for it to be Batman Noel. In the original source material of Batman Noel, the bat is actually attached to the bottom of a large, almost like a plate or something that goes around his shoulders. I'm not sure if it's armor or if it's just made out of leather. Another way you can tell this figure isn't actually based off of Batman Noel, they just slapped that name on the box, is because it doesn't have the straps that go along Batman's rib cage on either side that are part of the original suit. Another way that this suit is not accurate to Batman Noel is the pouches in Batman Noel go all the way around Batman's waist and there is no bat symbol in the middle. One way they did get it right though is they did resculpt Batman's boots. At least they resculpted the tops of Batman's boots, and you can tell because this Batman has 4 buckles down the side of his boot, while the other one only has 3 buckles on the side. Now, just for those of you who may not have actually seen my previous Page Puncher Batman action figure review, I'm going to do the articulation. I was going to skip it, but some of you may not have seen it, so let's just run through it quickly here. The head itself is on a rounded ball peg, and that's fairly good for a range of motion. Look at that. You might as well be a flight character. The shoulders have those rounded hinges that we know McFarlane toy figures have. They're multiverse figures. But these shoulder pads, just like with the previous one, do prove to be a little bit of a nuisance. They get in the way a little bit. They definitely prevent the arm from reaching its full potential and then staying there. They kind of push the arm back down again. We can see that there's a bicep swivel. That's going to be 360. We've got the double jointed elbows on this figure, and they're very good. They do a very good job of crunching up nicely. Of course, Batman's got that rounded hinge in the wrist. Torso articulation that, if I'm being honest, is fairly useless. Like, yes, the torso articulation can go back and forth, okay, side to side, a little bit, not too much. It doesn't really rotate that much. So it's not super beneficial articulation. When you combine that with his waist, which is also a 360 ball joint that actually will go 360, now you've got a little bit more side to side. You've got a bit more back and forward. But overall with the torso, not great. Don't expect to get him in any kind of crazy dynamic poses, because right here ain't cooperating. And then down here, well, we've seen this before. That's McFarlane's way of attaching the legs. That's what I call the McFarlane groin. And this right here, the approximation of a thigh cut, is almost as usual abysmal. There's very, very little there. I'm really working this as hard as I can, and it's really not given much. However, if you wanted double jointed knees, he's got them. They're pretty good. And he's got a rounded hinge in the ankle. Not too bad. Obviously, it's going to be a pivot. And we have the toe articulation. So what do I think about the Batman Noel action figure? Is it good or is it garbage? Well, I'm certainly happy to have it. I take this as an upgrade to the previous McFarlane figure based on Lee Bermejo's artwork. The fact that it's not completely accurate to the source material isn't something that's a deal breaker for me. It's like a more detailed, kind of sort of realistic-ish view on what the classic Batman suit would look like if it were, you know, real and maybe more practical. Also, I'm digging the fact that it's got a wired cloth goods cape. I'm digging the fact that it has a brand new head sculpt, and I'm really liking this gray color a lot better than the previous one, as I've already stated. So I definitely like this figure, and absolutely think that if you see this guy out in public hanging on the pegs, he's definitely worth the pickup. Anyway, those are just my thoughts, ideas, opinions, observations. I'm sure you'll have your own. Leave them down in the comment section below, and I will see you with the next one. Have a DC day, everybody, and take care.